I'm Native America Calling host Sean Spruce. Federal support for public media programs has been eliminated, including our show, but your gift can help keep us going strong. Go to the donate link at nativeamericacalling.com to make a gift today. Welcome to Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. Ash and Aaron have a problem. For starters, they have been dead for 20 years, and there's been an endless stream of prospective homebuyers coming to the house they've been stuck in all that time. Tara Moses' new play, Haunted, is a story for the ages and the month of October, and it takes the stage at the Autry Theater this weekend. We'll hear from Moses coming up and talk to artists just recognized by the Native Arts and Culture Foundation. That's all right after the news.
This is National Native News. I'm Antonia Gonzalez. The federal government shutdown is in its second week. Tribal leaders across the country are continuing to raise concerns, saying Indian country will bear the burden. Matt Laszlo has more from Washington.
No one knows the full extent of how the shutdown will hit Indian country, but policymakers are braced for pain to come. Democrats continue to band together, demanding Congress intervene to keep Affordable Care Act premiums from doubling in the coming months. Arizona Democratic Senator Ruben Gallega says those future rate hikes promise more pain than today's temporary furloughs.
Well, it just depends. Like, some government workers obviously will feel it when they don't get their next paycheck because they already got the first paycheck. But when people are really going to feel it is around November 1st when they start getting open enrollment, and 24 million of them are going to have their insurance rates doubled.
Take the Indian Health Service. While Medicare and Medicaid are first payers, IHS is a payer of last resort, which means the IHS budget is insulated for now, according to Oklahoma Republican Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, an enrolled member of the Cherokee Nation.
Right now, nobody's affected yet. They're dealing off reimbursements, and a lot of their reimbursements come off Medicaid and Medicare, and of course that's not affected by this.
Even though Mullen isn't worried about IHS cuts, he says that doesn't mean Congress can shrug off the unseen impacts of a federal government shutdown.
There is no pressure taken off of us. We're in a shutdown. The thing is like when are level heads going to prevail in the Democrat Party? That's what we're waiting on.
Indian country was already reeling from federal cuts before the shutdown. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. rescinded IHS staffing cuts earlier this year. But New Mexico Democratic Senator Ben Ray Lujan says cuts to other parts of the federal health care budget have been felt across Indian country.
There's a hospital in the state of New Mexico that an IHS facility that no longer offers support for moms delivering kids or having babies. And that's all because of the Trump administration and a direct result of the poor leadership coming from Robert Kennedy.
For National Native News, Matt Laszlo in Washington.
A new law clarifies the role of Washington state's tribes on local boards of health, granting each tribe a seat on their county's board, appointing their own representative. Isabel Charlet reports.
The change clarifies a 2020 state law that requires local boards of health to include members who are not elected officials, including tribal representatives. Vicki Lowe is with the American Indian Health Commission, a nonprofit that works with the state to promote wellness in Washington's Native communities. She says the previous language was not clear about who was responsible for appointing tribal representatives to health boards or how many seats were available.
I'm hoping going forward we can get more tribes on these local boards of health, and the local relationship and working together to keep all of our community healthy and safe will happen.
Every county in the state has a local board of health that is tasked with enforcing health laws, controlling infectious diseases, and setting local policies. Of Washington's 29 federally recognized tribes, Lowe says so far about 15 have appointed someone to their local board. Ashley Bell is the tribal liaison for the Washington State Board of Health. She says the new law respects respects and affirms tribal sovereignty and makes sure that tribes are a part of public health conversations.
They are a part of the community and really have a direct impact on how community health happens.
The Washington Board of Health is in the first stages of the rulemaking process for the new law, which includes getting public feedback and consulting with the state's tribes and urban Indian health organizations. Bell says they are hoping to be done next July. I'm Isabel Charlet.
And I'm Antonia Gonzalez.
National Native News is produced by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation with funding by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Support by Sonosky Chambers Law, championing tribal sovereignty and Native American rights since 1976. From opioids litigation to treaty rights to tribal self-governance. With offices in Washington, D.C., New Mexico, California, and Alaska. Sonosky Chambers Law.
Skugdash. For more than 40 years, Ramona Farms has revived ancient traditional foods. Tepary beans, pinoli, polentas, and more, all from store.ramonafarms.com. Ramona Farms supports this show. Tom Yang.
Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.
This is Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. For 20 years, two Tongva ghost siblings have found creative ways to haunt people who move into a house they inhabit. It involves an early 2000s soundtrack with a particular inclination toward Britney Spears and other pop divas. But Ash and Aaron are getting a little tired of the routine and start contemplating why they're there. Seminole playwright Tara Moses manages to find the humor in Native stereotypes and the Indian burial ground trope in her play Haunted that is coming to the Greenway Court Theater in West Hollywood this weekend. Tara joins us in a moment, and later we'll hear from Native artists recognized by the Native Arts and Culture Foundation for their works that address social change. Please join our conversation today by calling 1-800-996-2848. That number is also 1-800-99-NATIVE. Joining us now from Los Angeles, California is Tara Moses. She is a playwright and director. She's Muskogee and a citizen of the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma. Tara, good morning and welcome to Native America Calling.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations, Haunted. This is a very funny play. I read the script. I couldn't stop laughing throughout it. I just really enjoyed it. But like all satire, there is a message here. And I want to ask you, when you conceived this idea, were you thinking about how to get across big concepts like land back and other tribal issues, or did you just want to make people laugh with a fun play?
You know, I think it was a little bit of both, because when I first started to write this play, I went to Company One Theater in Boston and I had a pitch for them. And my only pitch was, I would love to turn the Indian burial ground trope on its head. And the only idea I have are two siblings who died in like 2003 and who love Britney Spears. And I want there to be a Ouija board scene and they conjure a Quaker and then they bully the Quaker. That's the only idea I have. And they were like, say less. And so they greenlit the commission. And I think as I started writing it, my intention was to have like a 90-minute, no intermission, very fun, silly, satirical play of just like Native spirits haunting a house. But as I sat down to write it, it so quickly, like almost immediately, turned into this larger story about land back. Because as I was sitting there writing it, I was thinking about it like dramaturgically, and I was like, why aren't they in the spirit world? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why are they trapped in this house? And then that made me think about all of these universities and museums who hold the remains of our ancestors and, you know, not giving them back. And how so many of those places are like, oh, this place is haunted. And, you know, and all of us are like, yeah, no, duh. But, you know, I was thinking about why that is. And I was like, oh my gosh, what if this is what happens to our relatives if we cannot get their their spirits back, because like we're tied so much to our physical bodies. Yeah, which is a very dark, deep thought to go down. But yeah, it very quickly turned into a piece about land back and what can this entail?
Mm-hmm. Now, going back to the jokes, the tropes, the stereotypes, I mean, you go all in unabashed. I mean, and I don't know that people really like non-natives realize how much we laugh about the tropes that they take so seriously. But obviously, like native people in the audience for Haunted, they're going to have an advantage here. They're going to get some of these inside jokes. So I want to ask you, did you write specifically for a native audience, or were you thinking more broad?
Oh, I mean, I always write for a native audience. And, but I was thinking for all audiences. And it's so funny that you say that because, so we're on our second production now. This is in a series of 3 productions with the National New Play Network, which is great. And so in the first production in Boston earlier this year, it was so funny because there were so many natives in the audience, like every show, which was just such a beautiful thing to experience, because that's not always true in the theater. And there were native folks who were just laughing at so many things, and nobody else in the audience is laughing. And then there were other times in which non-native folks in the audience were laughing, and all of us were just looking at each other, and they're like, "Oh, they're gonna regret laughing at that in a minute." And yeah, and just the different ways in which audiences engaged, because for native people, the ending of the play, no spoilers, but the ending of the play just hits so heavy. I get so emotional with just one line about we'll be able to visit our mother again. And we as native people just deeply feel and understand that. And yeah, and so obviously thinking about all audiences, but first and foremost, I'm thinking about native people, because if this play can inspire folks to give their land back, then it benefits all of us.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you make it clear in the stage directions on the first page of the play that the play should be directed by native people and feature native actors. Did you have any trouble getting those requirements met?
Oh no, I never do now, luckily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's my inclusion writer, and that is on every single play I write. Because in the theater, there's a huge inequity. I mean, first of all, companies are not producing native work rarely ever. But when they do, 9 times out of 10, sometimes 9.9 times out of 10, the director is a non-native person. And, the show suffers. The director is the creative head of the production. And there are so many native directors who are not getting work, not getting opportunities. And especially for directors, because I'm a director predominantly, if we don't have productions and work, then theaters don't take a risk on us, don't take a chance on us. MFA graduate programs don't accept us. And so I was there's this massive inequity in the field. Yeah, sure, as a native playwright, love to get my play produced. But if I'm the only person who's benefiting from it, or being able to make a living from it, I was that ain't right. And so, yeah, so that's why it's on the front page of that script. And I've never had no problems, which is great.
Tara, let's say a non-native person goes to the play and they have no knowledge of what land back means to native people or some of these contemporary issues, and they just begin seeing what they think is a funny ghost story. What do you think they're going to go home with? What are they going to take away?
I think they're going to take away what land back is, because I structured this play in such a specific way. I like to say I have an evil little ideas. But it's where it starts so funny, like a ghost story, like a haunting that's hilarious. There's a full-blown dance routine to Britney Spears is Toxic. It's a good time. However, the play quickly moves from, oh, this is fun and games, to what is happening here. And Aaron and Ash, the 2 lead characters in the show, while they are Native people, they too are learning what the land back movement is in real time. Because, as we know, like our peoples have been trying to get our lands back since the moment they were taken. However, the land back movement as like a recognizable movement name wasn't really coined until 2016. And so Aaron and Ash have no idea what this movement is. They've never heard of it. And so while they are learning what land back is in real time, the folks who come to the audience, in the audience who come to see the show, who also may have never heard of land back, are also learning it in real time with Aaron and Ash and walking away with tangible strategies, whether they own a home or whether they rent a home. There ain't no excuse. The people know. We're very clear.
You mentioned the two lead characters, Ash and Aaron, who of course are both acted by native actors. And then you have other characters, but they're not listed by names. You have white man, you have white girl number two. What's behind that?
Well, so multiple reasons. First of all, I think it's funny, but not really. My real answer is so many works in the American theater, if there are natives in them, which again are rare, but like there are so many where it's like, oh yeah, Indian warrior number one, Indian number two. We're not given the
right.
like decency of names, or that courtesy extended to us, and we're used as just like props in white American narratives. Like that's what's been true in the American theater since the foundings of Broadway, in the 19th century and even before. And so when this came around, I was like, white folks are being used as tools of this storytelling, by like showcasing different sides of whiteness, so on and so forth. And then also like, I'm making a pretty political statement where it's like, a lot of different white folks move through the world and think about land in the same way, like on a variety of political spectrum, on just like social life experience spectrums. And so, yeah, so I was like, this is a very political, deliberate choice to just call every white man character in the play white man, every white girl character in the play white girl, and then white girl too, because we got to have two for that. And so the only named characters are Aaron, Ash, and Vincent, the Black man realtor, who really showcases the solidarity between like Black liberation and tribal sovereignty. It's all on purpose.
Awesome. Too cool. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and continue our conversation. We are learning about the play Haunted. It is really, really, it's funny, it's satirical, but it's also, it's got an edge. It's got a message to it, and just a lot of really, really great playwriting here and acting as well. And we're going to continue our conversation. We're going to hear more from Tara and about what went into creating such a fantastic production. And of course, listeners can join the conversation if you've had a chance to check out Haunted. It's premiered earlier this year in Boston, or maybe you're looking forward to seeing it in LA. Give us a call, 1-800-996-2848. After 2 years, the Spokane tribe just welcomed the first graduates of a Spokane Salish language adult immersion program. The event doubled the number of the tribe's language speakers. We'll hear about that and a cross-cultural program that teaches Yuchi as a first language. That's on the next Native America Calling.
The annual Indian Nations Conservation Alliance National Conference in Las Vegas, October 14th to the 16th, is a movement. Natural resource management, conservation and land stewardship, agricultural technology and innovation. Internationally acclaimed regenerative rancher Alejandro Carrillo will speak on ancestral land practices and sustainable food systems. Info and registration at inca-tcd.org. Inca supports this show.
Thank you for tuning in to Native America Calling today. We're talking with playwright Tara Moses about her new play, Haunted. Of course, you can join our conversation today by calling 1-800-996-2848. Native Theater. What interests you about Native Theater? Give us a call, 1-800-99-NATIVE. Join our conversation today. And Tara, we've got to talk about the music here in Haunted. It's a big part of the play. Describe the importance of these tunes to you and your process for selecting them.
Yeah, so the play has so much music from the early 2000s. Specifically, it's like two genres. It's like the pop divas, Britney Spears, Mariah Carey, and then we move into like Destiny's Child. Very much like diva. And then there's the emo music of it all, where it's like Beastie Boys, Linkin Park, 3 Days Grace, um, Switchfoot, Creed. Anyway, so the choice in those music genres, twofold. I mean, the first one is, I as a, young teen girl in the early 2000s listened to both of those genres. I was like an emo kid and a pop princess all at the same time. And so I wrote it for me. But also, whenever thinking about when did Aaron and Ash die, thinking about these tropes of Indian burial grounds, so many of them have like native people haunting from like the 1800s, 1700s, like way back in the past. Whenever people think of an Indian ghost, that's what they are imagining. And so initially I was like, already we're going to turn it on its head to have folks who died in 2003 and like very ingrained in pop culture. But the other reason why I like chose that era is whenever we think of Y2K, it is so distinct. Like the fashion, the music, the vibe, like all of it. And whenever we're looking back, like we as in like America are looking back at that nostalgic time, especially right now, no one's talking about native people in the Y2K era. Like, I was thinking about this as I was writing it. I was like, wait a minute. I was a native person in Y2K. Like, I had a pink Motorola Razor flip phone. Like, why is nobody thinking about native people's contribution to pop culture and like in native people's relationship to the pop culture? So it was also an attempt to like help audiences open their minds to like, oh my God, wait a minute. Every single nostalgic era, huge pop culture moment that has ever occurred ever, Native people were there. Native people had opinions. Native people were active in it. Anyway, and just using something like that's so iconic like Y2K and just so identifiable felt really important. And especially like, the Y2K nostalgia is having a resurgence right now. So it just like all fell into place.
It really, what struck me is I realized after reading it, like it's been a long time since Y2K. It's been 25 years. It's like, I can't get over how time has flown because it just in some ways felt like it was just yesterday. But Tara, I mean, you are a busy, an experienced, a prolific playwright. Among many titles to your name are adaptations of classics like Hamlet, Othello, and Don Juan. What drives you to take on adaptations of Shakespeare and other classic European literature?
Yeah, well, I will say in regards to like what drives me, that's like lower on the list. But it's like so many people like in the theater and even outside of the theater who engage in the arts look to those classics as like the pillar of what theater is, so they say. And so many of those works are like seeped in colonialism, use like native people and native imagery in like very bastardized ways. And like, theaters are always going to be doing Shakespeare. They always will. And I think about how Shakespeare has literally been used to force Native people to forget their language. It was used on me in elementary school. Like, there are like records of children at like the Carlisle Indian School who chose the name Will Shakespeare. Like, where that didn't come from nowhere, you know?
Right.
And so, as a very political act, I use those classics and create adaptations that are anti-colonial, to connect all of these dots for folks, because like colonialism is so pernicious and present in everything that we do. And even something like, you know, a silly little Shakespeare play, first of all, it's not a universal story, it's a very colonial story, but second of all, implicates Native people. And so like that's the very political side of it. And then the other side of it is, you know, I'm finding in my career that folks only think of me as a native artist, which, you know, don't get me wrong, I love, absolutely. But like they only call me to do native work. And it's like, you know, I am a Shakespeare scholar. I've been in many publications at this point. I can do many things. So many native people can do so many things. And so also it's like showcasing how we can work in all genres of theater, not just contemporary native stories.
Yeah, and that's a message. That is a message that we just really need to think of us and our talents and how they can expand beyond just native themes. That's so cool. That's so cool, Tara. And that's a growing genre too, like people who other playwrights who are reimagining like Shakespeare classics. Because I went to high school with a guy that did like a version of Othello that takes place in the Civil War. It was really interesting.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk about another series of plays that you call the Oklahoma Cycle. And I'm going to read part of a description from your website. This is, now that I know you, this is really like your classic vibe here. I'm going to read it. This cycle does not exist to educate, but rather to envelop audiences into uncompromising, unapologetic, and unfiltered stories from a yeehaw Indian lens. Introduce us to
Oh
this
yeah.
window into native Oklahoma life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it like, you know, again, I'm from Oklahoma. I identify as a Yeehaw Indian, because, you know, I have a little Southern accent, and, you
I
know,
didn't
like the
notice.
Southern culture is so ingrained. But yeah, and so, but I was like, let's look at the theater, huh? There's not a lot of stories that are about folks like me and like my family where they come from. So I was like, it's about time to add a little yeehaw flair into the native theater canon, you know?
Mhm. Well, tell me about how you grew up in Oklahoma. Where'd you grow up, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, so I grew up like in within Seminole Nation, like within our reservation, and then when I was around like 8-ish years old, we moved to the Muskogee Creek Reservation. And for folks who've not been to Oklahoma, the Muskogee Creek Reservation is like partially urban, like and enveloped in like the big city of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so we were on the urban side of that. So moving from the rural, you know, Seminole Nation and like the central southern portion, and then to the more urban part of northeastern Oklahoma, which is a culture shock in and of itself. Like moving from a place where everybody was native to suddenly, like, I was going to schools where I was the only native person, which not good for a young native person's psyche. Um, but you know, Oklahoma is a really wonderful, unique place because we have so many native nations there. You know, because of removal and all kinds of things. And so there is so much like intertribal collaboration and community. I mean, as well as like such hyper specific nations, and being like celebrating the diversity of that. And so the, you know, there, growing up there was such an experience of like rich, vibrant native cultures combined with a government that really hates native people. You know, the current governor, who I have a nickname for, which I will not say on live air because it's not appropriate. But he said that the biggest threat to Oklahomans is not like, the heroin epidemic or like the financial crisis, none of that. He said the biggest threat to Oklahomans is tribal sovereignty and Native people. And so it was difficult in that it's like that is where my people's home have been since the 1840s when we were removed there. And like I have a lot of nostalgia for Oklahoma. I love the South. We got good food, we got sweet tea, we got hot summers and warm winters, like, and just those so many elements of Southern culture, which I love. So many like rich elements of, my people's culture. Like I'm really fortunate that Muskogee was my first language, because like I was in a community where people still spoke it, and were able to speak it and still learn it and pass it on. But juxtaposed with just like a political environment that's actively is working towards our continued genocide. So it's a little complicated, I will say. I love Oklahoma, but at the same time, like I don't live there currently. I couldn't. I had to move. And it's like, I would love for my children to have the opportunity to be there. But it's like it comes at a cost. And so so it's a little complicated. And so when it comes to like the Oklahoma cycle, I was like, this is my love letter to my family and where we're from. And also like my family's continued, and so many of our Oklahoma natives like continued resistance to like our ongoing genocide in the place that we now call home. In like grappling with continuing to be resilient and funny and sexy and having a grand old time, in the midst of the political reality of what it's like to live there.
Tara, this has been wonderful. Thank you again for coming on the show, educating our listeners, inspiring us. Quickly, before we transition to our next topic, what's the best way for listeners to learn more about the play?
Yeah, so you can learn more about Haunted on Native Voices social media. They're the producing company and the only equity union theater for Native artists in the country. So shout out Native Voices. So on their social media, it's just at Native Voices. If you want to follow what's going on with Haunted. Haunted is then going to go to Cleveland next year at Cleveland Public Theater. So you can follow them on Cleveland Public Theater social media. You can check me out on social media, Tara Tomahawk. I post anything and everything you need to know. But those are the places to go.
All right. Tara Tomahawk, thank you so much. You take care.
Thanks, you too.
The Native Art and Cultures Foundation just announced their 2025 winners for the Shift, Transformative Change and Indigenous Arts Awards. These are artists working at the top of their game in a variety of media. Their award comes with a $100,000 award to complete a community project. We have 3 of those artists awardees with us today. First up is Demian Dene Yazi. He is a transdisciplinary artist, a poet, and a curator, and of course, he is Dene. Demian, congratulations. Great to have you on the show today.
Yat Ed, thank you so much. My name is Demian Dene Eshe. My pronouns are actually they, them. I am born to the clans Nastashe, Tabaha, and Torachitni.
Thank you, Demian. Appreciate it so much. You are a printmaker. What is it about that medium that inspires you?
I really actually got into the whole process at UNM University in Albuquerque way back in the day. I was really interested in more of the utilitarian, hands-on approach to art making. As it developed and I grew more interested in the medium, I also adopted the letterpress as a form of publishing posters and prints. And I really, where I'm at right now, I'm really just inspired by the radical history of recording different moments of social activism throughout human history, whether that's in the Western world or with, indigenous cultures and whatnot. I'm also really interested in at this moment where we're at with a lot of AI technology being pushed onto younger generations and artistic communities as well. I'm really interested in printmaking because it stems away from that. It refuses to go into that space, and I think in this way it also continues a very ancestral indigenous tradition of making with your hands. I know we think of indigenous traditional art as being weaving, basketry, silversmithing, but I also think that there are other elements like curatorial, or not curatorial, but critical institutional critique and printmaking and these other ideas of like thinking and applying that thinking into craft, into our artwork as a continuation of indigenous resistance and history.
Demian, how long have you been doing printmaking? And tell me a little bit more about the process that you use.
I've been doing it now, I guess, almost about 20 years. Initially, I was, drawn into these like introductory methods of, wood printmaking and or woodcut printmaking and lino cut. I'm still really interested in those. Recently, I've been working with this space in Portland, Oregon called Maloney Printing. I also did a residency a few years ago at Crow Shadow. And these people have, master printers, people who have like deep, amazing skill sets, who are also just really interested and curious and supportive of artists who may, venture outside of traditional printmaking. So with Maloney, I've been working a lot on the letterpress. I've been making this poster series called Protect the Sacred Voice, which is about honoring artistic voice and freedom within the arts. My work has been censored many times, and this came out of a censorship in Oregon. And so this is an ongoing body of work. It's worked within, the letterpress medium, and was most recently exhibited as a digitally printed 8-foot by 290-foot banner in downtown Toronto.
Okay.
So I'm also really interested in the ways that work can also move outside of the medium.
All right. We'll be right back. More with Demian Deneyazi.
Keshe, isto man ko hot wea ke tenam awa na kap to bani sikanawa. Yam to da ko mos awa shu up to ki kwat ko is breast cancer screening teatro to mati da panna. Asla tayu ya de kanihan to this healthcare.gov/coverage could awa nan ta isto 1-800-318-2596 up in up to. Look your Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services to na pedalito lo kenawe. Ela kwa.
We're glad you're with us today on Native America Calling. We are talking now with Native Arts and Cultures Foundation 2025 Shift awardees. They're embarking on community arts projects over the next year. And of course, you can join us by calling 1-800-996-2848. We have Demian Deneyazi on the line right now. And Demian, before break, you mentioned that your work has been censored many times. And I'd like to hear more about that. And of course, a focus of this award is the Native artistic perspective as it relates to social change. So what is it about your work you think that caught the attention of the foundation?
I believe it's the honoring of Indigenous voices, particularly marginalized voices within Indigenous communities. Indigenous communities being marginalized as well and being largely underrepresented and supported in larger, Western colonial United States. But within Indigenous communities, there are Indigenous, Two-Spirit, trans, non-binary, and queer artists who are also underrepresented at large, within the larger colonial settler nation state, but also within Indigenous communities. And so I think that was one element that really drew interest and curiosity, and the desire to support this project from the NACF. The project is called Savage Uprising Beyond Resilience, and it's about recognizing the overwhelming artistic integrity and energy that thrives within Indigenous, Two-Spirit, non-binary, and trans communities. And it really just opens up an area of support, both financially through residency and also through creating a limited edition print portfolio that will showcase this work. And so I'm really interested in bringing together this community of amazing artists to embark on that journey and to utilize Maloney's skills and expertise to make really amazing prints. Maloney Studios is, Maloney Printing is just an amazing space that has worked with various Indigenous artists and various artists around the country to continue to push this work. And I think we're at this really crucial moment where we have a lot of really important things that we have to say. And Indigenous communities have had amazing things and histories and traditions that, we are eager to share with the world, especially we're in these moments of like catastrophe and climate crisis.
Demian, congratulations again on your award. I'm looking at some images of your work online right now, and they are really powerful.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Joining us now from New York is Brooke Pepien-Swaney. She is a filmmaker and also an enrolled citizen of the Blackfeet Nation and a Bitterroot Salish descendant of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes. Brooke, hello. Welcome to Native America Calling.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, yourself and other awardees were able to get together and learn about each other's projects and work. Tell me more about that meeting. Did it give you a sense of how these projects will make change in Native communities?
Yeah, it was actually really great to spend a little bit of time with each other. Of course, like in person would be nice, but we're flung across the corners of Indian country, so that makes it sometimes kind of challenging. But it was really cool to see, the breadth and depth of work from, Demian's fine arts perspective, and, also like rooted in like political advocacy for the LGBTQ Two-Spirit community to, I think later today we may be talking to another awardee, Myrna, and her work in the Akiachuk Native community in Alaska, and, preserving traditional arts through parka making and making boots and things like that. It's just amazing to see, our arts expressed in so many different ways. And it was really cool to hear the new projects. A colleague and friend of mine, Colleen Thurston, is doing more of like a kind of interdisciplinary like interrogation into, like the Black and Freedmen spaces in Tulsa, and the Dreamland Theater that used to be like a cultural hub there before the Tulsa race massacre in the early 1920s. And then Nora Naranjo Morris has a community project that she's going to do with some youth in Minneapolis, I believe. And then we also, Brent Michael Davids, he's an amazing composer and doing this really ambitious opera, kind of as a counterpoint to the 250th anniversary of the United States. So just a whole breadth. I hope I'm not forgetting. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody, but
who you're forgetting, Brooke? You're forgetting
Me.
yourself. You're forgetting to talk about yourself. I want to hear more about your shift project.
Yeah. So I've been taking Salish language classes at the Salish Kootenai College for the past couple of years. And part of the class has been an intensive to, get adults more involved in language learning, because it's not just elders who are speaking and passing it to youth, but it's also the need for adults to know how to speak our language and also teach that to youth and, little babies. So through learning this curriculum, I was like, well, how can I contribute to my community in a way that feels like I'm using my skill set in service of, where I live. And part of that was, well, maybe I can translate or really adapt some of these stories that we learn in the language into short films. And it's basically like embarking on making a kids' TV show in a way that would be accessible to not just kids, but also adults, in these kind of bite-sized little stories that are all culturally based on the Flathead Reservation where I live. And so I started kind of, asking around to my teachers, to the community, and then talking to people at Inclusum or Salish Language Immersion School. And they all were really supportive and excited about the idea. And it feels really ambitious, but I feel incredibly supported and already a gust in my sails to keep moving forward from the Shift Award, which will be a 2-year award and hopefully will be one of more that will come because, filmmaking isn't easy and, it's a team effort and I'm going to need all the help I can get. So, yeah.
And obviously language has a big role in this film. Talk a little bit about how you incorporated it and just how you went about using native language in this context. It's really
we
unique.
We haven't started filming yet. So what we're doing right now is, we learn these stories through narration as part of this curriculum to learn Salish. So it's kind of like an immersion thing where it's like, okay, we're going to drop you into the story. And the first sentence you learn in the first story, which is said in the wintertime, is Es necesas si su malta ulusi, es aeoti el kalanitwe, blah, blah, blah. And it you're learning this story about these two twins, Martin and Lucy, or Malta Lucy. And as you're learning the story, you're getting all this vocabulary, but you're also getting a little entertained, So the idea is to take that narrated story and create it into a live action film where you're seeing these kids speaking in the language. So it's not just, a narrated story, it's also seeing dialogue.
Okay.
I think Yale University did a study about, ways of teaching people languages. And part of that is immersion. Well, how in our indigenous communities can we create a facsimile of immersion in, our modern life where we don't have first language speakers, where we can just jump into a community and have a bunch of speakers. And media is the next best thing. When I was in undergrad, I did a minor in French, and part of how I learned the language was to watch French TV shows and French movies and all of that stuff. Well, I think now it's the time, especially in the age of TikTok and all of that stuff, we have that ability to make media that can create that simulated immersive environment. And that's really where the idea came from.
Brooke, congratulations. Really looking forward to the film.
Thank you so much.
Joining us now from Anchorage, Alaska is artist Myrna Wharton. She is Yupik from Akiach Native community. Myrna, good morning. Congratulations to you as well. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. I'm from Akiach in Yupik and Akiach in Western terms.
Thank you, Myrna. Thank you so much for helping me out with the pronunciation today. I'm sorry. I apologize. Tell us more about your work. You do work with furs, leathers, you make mukluks and other types of clothing. How do you use your artistic skills in this shift project to help your community?
I will be sharing the art of making parka and gamuksuks. Those are the maksuks, or the in other terms, belugoks in Yupik. And I'm looking forward to teaching that for 2 years. It'll be quarterly visits, and the name of the program will be called Mending Our Community Through Threads of Our Culture. And it will be through the Akitak Native community through their existing wellness program called, it's including the youth suicide prevention and opioid awareness and prevention using the Jalre Jarak Yupik-based wellness program and curriculum.
Now, these classes, will they be primarily targeted to youth then?
Yeah, adults and youth. I can teach from adults to children. I recently was in a camp for Arctic ground squirrel camp with the Kaganak Native Village, and teaching trapping, tanning, processing from tundra to the table to eat the meat, and then also to sew for the wear.
I'm looking at some of your work online, images as well, Myrna. Parkas that you have made, they're just absolutely exquisite. Are there many people that are able to do this kind of work today, and especially not only that, but teach it like yourself?
I think it's almost like an academic thing for me, because it's basically self-taught. I taught myself from feeling the parka that I'm replicating, and that's how I started.
What was your first thought when you learned that you were an awardee? It's such a big honor, and of course, a lot of money behind it as well to implement this program. What was your reaction?
My reaction was, I just knew that I would get this, because I have a lot of support from my family and other grants I received, and the skills I've learned and the mistakes I've learned. Those are helpful because it's all trial and error. But anybody can do it. If I can do it coming from a small village like Akajok, anybody can do it. It's all mathematical geometry, and it involves trappers, hunters, processors, usually are women, and basically it's a survival tool to have to help you economically, and especially this time of era.
Myrna, what's the timeline? When do you expect the classes to begin and get your whole curriculum in order?
So we have yet to meet. We'll be meeting. I think I'll be meeting with them quarterly, and so in between then we'll be online, hopefully on Zoom or on Facebook Live or somewhere to reach out to people, and we're excited. It's all basic skills that we'll be learning: sewing, processing meat, and everything to do with Yupik, being Yupik.
Myrna, congratulations to you. I'm going to be really excited. Hope you come back on the show after the program is up and going and the classes are taking place. Quickly, where can listeners go to learn more?
Maybe go on to my Instagram, Nazikdak, or go on to my website, nazikdak.com. I'm always busy, so I'm unable to go on and update my website, but that's okay. I like sewing.
All right. Thank you so much, Myrna. And unfortunately, we're out of time now, so we're going to have to wrap up our conversation. But first, I want to thank all of our guests who joined us today: Tara Moses, Demian Danae Yaze, Myrna Wharton, and Brooke Peppian Swaney. Please join us on Indigenous Peoples Day on Monday when we'll hear about new ways tribes are working to revitalize their languages. Our executive producer is Art Hughes. Our producers are Andy Murphy, Sol Traverso, and Joe Thompson. Marino Spencer is the engineer. Sho McPolin is the digital producer. Nola Daves Moses is the distribution director. Bob Peterson is the network manager for Native Voice One. Clifton Chadwick is our national underwriting sales director. Antonia Gonzalez is the anchor for National Native News. Charles Sather is our chief operations officer. The president and CEO of Koahnic Broadcast Corporation is Jacqueline Salee. Have a safe weekend. I'm Sean Spruce.
Support by AARP, whose Family Caregiver Resource Guide is available to caregivers by calling 877-333-5885 or at aarp.org/caregiverresources. Support by Drummond Woodsum, a full-service law firm whose nationally recognized tribal nations practice provides services to tribal nations and their enterprises and to companies that do business with tribes across the country. More at dwmlaw.com.
Wantagnichi Mankuwazan Yeapiki Yaniktelo, La Kozani Wawokiki Oboglakayo, Takucha Yakachiki Onicha Piktelo. Isama Soliachihanta, Lil Yayo, healthcare.gov/Nish Lil Yayo, Nish Lil Mas Aphayo, 1-800-318-2596. Lewot Khaniki, Medicare and Medicaid Otiatahi Apelo.
Native America Calling is produced in the Annenberg National Native Voice Studios in Albuquerque, New Mexico by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation, a Native nonprofit media organization. Funding is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting with support from the Public Radio Satellite Service. Music is by Brent Michael Davids. Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.